Hey, welcome to Integrated Preparedness. I'm Jim Wyatt. No, I'm not. I'm Steve Smith. And those of you who got that are obviously stone modders. You know that. And for those who don't, Jim Wyatt is I might call him my alter ego, I suppose, a little bit. He's the main character in the Stone Mod books. And it's through his character that I share a lot of my opinions and advice and stuff like that. Had somebody ask me, or told me actually, they said that they enjoyed the stuff that I put. I'm getting a brain. My hat's too tight. They enjoyed what I put on there about the etiquette of wearing cowboy hats. And they said, why don't you do something like that on YouTube? And I will, because I mentioned it once before, but not today. Today we're going to talk about gunfighting. That's why I'm wearing my gunfighting hat, right? My gunfighter, because this is a hat that I always wear when I go out to get in a gunfight. Because, it's just the way that you do. I mean, you can't walk out in the middle of the street and be up against another guy out there, and he's wearing his gunfighter hat, and then you're not, because, people would laugh at you, right? And the other thing that you always want to make sure that you do is whenever you take a drink, okay, here I've got my Second Amendment cup, you always drink with your left hand if you're a right-handed gunfighter, because that way your right hand is always open to get that gun really fast, right? Drag that thing out and put it into action in just a split second. Of course, if you're a left-handed gunfighter, it's the other way around. Which they talk about Billy the Kid, right? Who was supposed to be a big old gunfighter, big deadly guy. Those guys, most of them back there, they were not gunfighters in the way that you think of. Okay, they might have killed a lot of people with guns, but they didn't go out in the middle of the street, which is about the stupidest thing you can do. Although Hickok did it successfully down in Springfield. I talk about that on another one. I forget which one. Okay, so the reason that I want to talk about gunfighting a little bit today is because I want to talk about the fast draw. When I got up today, and after I checked my normal things that I checked, the news and a couple of YouTube channels and things like that, something popped up on my feed. Don't know why. It's just one of those things. I do not watch. I don't want to sound like I'm disparaging these people at all. But I don't, for the most part, watch gun channels for their gun handling. Well, I'll just put it that way, okay? For the same reason that doctors don't watch Grey's Anatomy, okay? When you've done something for a living, you tend not to watch other people, do things like that. And probably the doctors that I know don't watch YouTube channels about being doctors. But I do want to, so something came up on my feed. A couple of guys, and it was only like 50 seconds long, so I said, okay, well, what are they doing here? And they were showing two guys up against each other, and they had their war belts all decked up and had their rigs, snappy, and multiple magazines all over the place, and they were in a range, right? They weren't in a gunfight, they were in a range. And they were showing how fast they could draw, pop up a couple of shots, change mags, pop off a couple more shots, change mags, pop off a couple of more shots. Okay. I'm not going to disparage that, but too many people watch that stuff and think that that's real. Now I know every time I make a video about, especially if I put it on YouTube, about something that has to do with guns, gun handling, gunfighting, something that I have more than my share of experience at, I will get comments about, well, oh yeah, but, and I can tell, trust me, I can tell, when it comes from somebody who has no real world experience. And for the most part, the ones that I can tell got some experience, and you guys know who you are, and there's a lot of law enforcement and military out there. They usually come back and say, that's exactly right. But I'll always get somebody going, well, but, and I call those yabbits and whatevers. So I want to talk a little bit about real world fast draw. Okay, I don't know if we'll get into gunfighting, that's a little bit broader area, but fast draws. And talk about all the time people are spending practicing their fast draws. Okay. I fast drew once in my whole career, and that was by mistake. And I'll talk about that story in a minute. But first, I want to back up a little bit and talk about real world gun carrying. Okay, now, if you followed me a little bit, and I know that every now and then I will mention that I was in law enforcement for quite a while. I started out in a city department. I went from there to a sheriff's department, which first I rode county districts and small towns and stuff like that. Hey, they do that. Your first 6 months, you go out there. They see whether you can keep yourself alive out on the road for a while, and then before they decide what they want to do with you. And then I was fortunate enough to be put back into a city district because I was from the city. I had the city feel. I had the city understanding. A lot of the guys in the sheriff's department, it's not that they didn't want to, and they enjoyed riding that city district. But I was better suited for that than I was the county. Let's just put it that way. And so I did most of my time in uniform in a very high activity city district, which means that you were dealing with your gun and the guns of others, fairly frequently, more frequently than now. I drew my gun. I don't know how many times. People ask me, how many times do you think you drew your gun? Okay, now we're not talking about going out in the street, right, and facing off and slapping leather and junk like that. Well, I'm talking about how many times did I take my pistol, my handgun. It was a revolver back then. We called them pistols, and now people want to argue about what's a pistol and what's a revolver, which is a silly argument. And again, before anybody jumps on here and says, well, it's not a silly argument if you don't know the difference between a pistol and a revolver, let me tell you all about it. Okay, Range Ninja. Pistol comes from the old, the old pistoleros weren't carrying Glocks, right? And it comes from some Latin word, pistola, or a French word, I forget, which means firearm meant to be held in one hand. Okay, so I drew my gun from my holster. I don't know how many times, more than 100, maybe less than 200. I don't know, and it doesn't matter. What matters is the reason that my gun was out of the holster. And the reason that it was out of the holster was because I thought I might have to use it. Okay? Didn't mean that I was going to use it, and there are people that I know that will say, never draw your gun until you're ready to use it. Well, I was ready to use it. You don't just walk around, town with your gun in your hand. But when you think you might need it, your gun needs to be in your hand and not in your holster. And I know I've said that before. So back then, I went from a city department. We were trained in the academy on what was called one-man car procedure, which means there was usually one guy in a car. Occasionally there was a two-man car, but mostly it was one. And then you had procedures which you used to deal with different situations. And usually if it was a violent or a certain kinds of calls, I'm not going to get into all of it, but in many calls, you would have two people on the call, two district officers on the call. And you would wait for your backup, and you would go in to whatever it was, a barricaded subject, disturbance or whatever, and you would go in there according to your two-man procedure. And back then, we didn't send SWAT teams just because there was a guy with a gun in somewhere. For the most part, it was expected that the district officer would handle that and take care of that. And I'll give you an example. The first one, I went from the city district to the sheriff's department. So I was riding one of these county districts, and I got a call to call the office. And so I did. And it was obviously something they didn't want to put out over the radio because people have scanners and they're always wondering what's going on, and you don't want to crowd around everything that you're doing. So I called the office, and I forget who was the first one. I guess it was one of the dispatchers. They said, "Hey, there's a guy apparently holding his wife at gunpoint at such and such address, and he says he's going to kill the first cop that shows up." And I said, now I think I'd been on the sheriff's department. Remember, I'd moved over from the city. I had maybe been out there a few months, right? And so I said, okay, all right. I wrote down the address. Okay, where's my backup coming from? And I heard this silence for a second. And he says, hold on a second. So I wait for a second, and another voice comes on, and it's a lieutenant. And he says, he gave my number. Maybe he said my name on it. He says, "Smith, do I understand that you're requesting a backup?" And you could just hear the derision in his voice. And so I immediately saw my mistake. And I said, "Oh, well, no, not a bit. I just curious, just wondering if one was, headed my way." Because in the city, you did not go into a barricaded situation, without a backup, and probably several, Like I said, they didn't always send a SWAT team, but at least you had some help. And on the sheriff's department, your backup is, could be 15 minutes away. He could be, quite a ways away. It could be longer than that. He could be 40 miles away. And I said, no. Who wants to be a wuss, right? When you're out there, if other people can do it, I can do it, right? So I said, oh, no, I'm just curious. And he says, I tell you what, if you get there and you don't think you can handle it, you give us a call and we'll send somebody who can. I said, oh, okay. So I'm driving out to this address. And I get uphill from it, and I see the house down there. It doesn't look like anything's going on, but I've been told right in there that there's this guy inside the house. He's holding his wife at gunpoint, and he's going to kill the first cop that shows up. So I form my little plan in my head, and I get ready to go, and I think about, and this is, long before cell phones. This is back in the 70s. So I'm thinking, all the way out there, I'm thinking, should I call my mom and tell her I love her? Is there anybody that I should call? Because I'm going to show up on this, and this guy's going to start, blazing away, and what if I don't make it out? Anyway, I went out there, and I see the house, and I say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. So I start slowly down the street, and I get about halfway down the hill, and then I kick the gas, and I go roaring down there, slam on the brakes, slide a little bit, slide up into the driveway, into the yard, and I bail out of my car, right? And I bail out of the car, and as soon as I get out and I run up next to the house, I got my gun in my hand, and I'm waiting to hear all these shots coming out, right? Well, no shots come out, and so I go around and I peek in windows and stuff, and I don't see anything going on. I don't see anybody, and so I get around to the back. I still don't see anybody, but there's a back door to the garage, and it's unlocked. So I go in, and so I figure there's no reason to be sneaky about this. There is reason to be sneaky when you're clearing a house in other situations. I'm going to get into one-man house clearing and room clearing on another one that I'm probably going to just put over on Patreon. But anyway, so I yell like you're supposed to do, sheriff's department, come on out, blah, blah, blah. If I have to come in after you, it's going to go badly, and, whatever. I wasn't quite that polite, but, you get the message. So I go in there, and it takes me a while. I clear that house, and there was nobody there. Nobody there, which is what often happens, and things, when you think they're going to go big, they don't, and when you aren't ready for them to go big, they do. Uh, One of those things of life. Well, anyway, but my gun was in my hand. What I wasn't doing was I wasn't going through the house, you know, with my gun in my holster because I figured I might need it. Uh, those kinds of things happen very often. Then some years later, I'll tell you about the fast draw, and then I'll kind of bring this together, if it'll make sense. I was looking for a guy, had a warrant on him, and he was supposed to be in this trailer uh, down on the east side of Kansas City. There's a little area down there that's kind of like a little Appalachia, and it was my district. And so he was supposed to be in this trailer. So I went up there to find him and knock on the door, right? Woman answers, says, "I'm looking for so-and-so. Is he here?" "No, he's not here. You mind if I come in and take a look around?" Well, she didn't much like that idea, but, I was pretty persuasive, and so we decided that I would come in and take a look around. Well, I go through that trailer, if you've ever, I don't know how many of you ever searched a trailer for a guy, but, trailers aren't that big, and so you're always aware of, any noises, and there's not that many places to hide in a trailer. You go through each room. You look under stuff, you look under all the tables, you look under the beds, you slam open the closets, and I had my gun in my hand for the most part. I wasn't going through like this. I simply had my gun in my hand, because if he came out at me, the first thing I'm going to do is grab him, and then you can't see it, I'm too close, and then my gun's going to be there, and it's not going to be up in his face, it's going to be down by my side, and I'm going to explain, okay, now we're going to jail, we'll get it figured out. Right? So anyway, I go through this whole trailer, nothing in there, and I look in the bathroom, a little small, trailer bathroom, nothing in there, and I had reholstered my weapon. That's a mistake. I don't know, why I did that. Usually I was more careful than that, but things happen. You drop your guard. Yeah, I just didn't have the feel. There's a lot of times, if you've got experience of this, you can go into a place and get a feel whether somebody's in there or not. It's not something I can explain. Maybe some of you guys out there, have had that experience. Or whether a place feels empty. And this place did feel empty. It felt empty. And so I had holstered my weapon. And I don't remember whether I had re-snapped it or not. Who knows? But there was the shower curtain was shoved up against, the faucet end. It was close to the door. And it was only about like that. I'm thinking, man, that's not enough for anybody to hide behind. But just, for drill, I just went over there and I snapped that shower curtain back, and there he was. He's standing up against the wall like this, and the next thing I knew, my gun was in my hand right up under his chin. And I don't remember drawing, I don't remember anything. But it was such a shock, and did I feel stupid later, right? Yeah. It was such a shock that my gun was out. I didn't pull the trigger. We had reached the point of agreement there. Now, to avoid this going farther in this direction, we are going to go out, put the cuffs on. I'm taking you in. You can make bond. You can see all your friends in jail, and stuff like that, and we'll get this taken care of. Many times, like I said, I drew my weapon because I thought I might have a need for it. And almost always I didn't. There was an occasion I did. That occasion, it wasn't in my hand. And actually, it was when I was, well, I'm not even going to talk about when it was, but for reasons that I also won't get into, it was inside my shirt, inside my pants, and on my offside, which is how I carried when I was in plain clothes. And even at that, I was able to get that gun into play in order to, I hate dramatic sound and stuff. I just say in order to effectively participate in the situation. But most of the times, when you need it, it needs to be in your hand. Now, why am I talking about all this? I'm talking about all this because of all of the talk that I hear, most by people who have never done it, never had to do it, never come close to having to do it, about the importance of drawing that gun fast and getting two in the target or whatever. And they continue to perpetuate this idea of the fast draw, the fast draw, the fast draw, the fast draw. Well, I will ascribe to the thought that slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And if you are too concentrated on drawing fast, you can make a mistake when it matters, which is not on the range, or not impressing people to how fast you're slicking that thing. And I would suggest that you realize that usually, I don't care what all these people say about a half a second can make all the difference. A half a second never made the difference with me. A half a second never made the difference with anybody I know. And I know right now, all those guys are going to be out there on their keyboards going, well, yeah, but I saw, so-and-so and so-and-so, and it can make a difference. And okay. Let me ask you this. Did it make a difference in the last gunfight you were in? And when I ask that, very often, I get silence, right? Well, I've never been in a gunfight, but if I were, it would make a difference. Well, you get back to me after you've been in one, all right, and tell us all about it. Now, I'm glad. Now, a lot of these shooting schools and things, there's not a darn thing wrong with them. They are great. Go get you some training after you get a gun. I know that a lot of Tier 1 guys and ex-SWAT guys have found a niche. They're able to make a good living teaching good gun handling and good gun mastery, and that's great, But the idea that you, the average person, are going to have to either one, slick that handgun out in half a second, or transition from your rifle to your handgun in a split second, you're not. Most of you are simply not going to have to do that. If it's a good activity, if you enjoy it, okay, there's nothing wrong with that. But I've seen too many times when I see several guys up on a range, right, and they were going to go through this timed stuff. And the buzzer buzzes, or the bell rings, or the guy yells, go, that I see one guy getting that out as fast as he can, right, and start shooting. And the others on the line, they get it out in a reasonable amount of time, and they shoot. And then when we look at the targets, that guy was all trying to impress everybody with his fast draw. His shots were all over the place. I guess he figured that after he drew so fast, nobody would check his target. Now, you only look silly on the range when you do that. In real life, if you do that, you could look dead. Okay? So, let this just be kind of what my message here is. Train for go, not for show. Realize that if you need your gun, it should be in your hand, not your holster. You can look at all the self-defense shootings and all of them on the YouTube and everything. I haven't watched all of them. I watched a few, and I saw exactly what I expected to see, and that was the armed citizen who comes to the defense of, store clerk, whatever it is, had plenty of time to draw his weapon in a reasonable manner, you know. And nobody, did he step out in the middle of the aisle against this guy and go for his gun? No, he didn't. If you were pointing a gun at me right now, do you think I would try to fast draw my way out of it? Would you? Okay. The first thing you do. So I would suggest all that energy that you're putting into those fast draws, that whatever. Put some time and thought and effort into increasing your ability to understand the environment around you. Being aware, getting street smart. We just called it being street smart. You know what's coming up. You walk into a place, you better know everybody who's in there. You better have made a critical analysis of everybody who's in that place. And you better determine who you think might be a threat, and then you've got an antenna out towards them, and you're keeping half an eye on them while you're getting your six-pack out of the cooler, right? And everybody who comes in that, you're not over there trying to decide, whether you want ho-hos or ding-dongs. Everybody who comes in, you have an eye on that door, and you see who's coming in. And then you're ready. We called this fieldcraft, we called it street smarts, and it's what I stress from my students, the people that I train. Know what's coming up, know what's around you, so that you can access that weapon properly. If you've got a fast draw, you usually missed a whole bunch of stuff. So I'd suggest you stay away from that flash. Flash in the pan, right? There's a reason that they say that. And develop your understanding of the world and your ability to handle your gun properly. Like they say, high speed is being able to do the basics on demand. That's right. The basics are usually just getting it in your hand and getting it ready to go. So get it ready to go in time by paying attention to the world around you. And you're never going to have to draw fast. I never had to, except one time when I was stupid. So don't be stupid. Don't be stupid like I was. And that's today's lesson from Jim Wyatt, the old country uncle who just kind of tells it like it is, even when people don't want to hear it. And I know most of you want to hear it, but think about it. And anyway, that's for today. Now I'm going to go take my old gunfighter hat to go do something else, and I'm going to drink my water with my left hand, just in case anybody's sneaking around here and I don't see him in time and I have to slick that thing. Okay. You all have a great day, and remember that we prepare well today and this minute so that we can live well tomorrow. And that means staying aware of everything that's going on around you all the time. And then you're not going to have to react fast. You'll be ready. You all have a good day. I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.